Imagine being the most powerful healer on the entire continent. In the final war against the Calamity, hunters were helpless against dragons. But they had will. With him, nobody died, no matter how brutal the wounds were. Trust me, you and I are about to see why that was a problem. That blessing turned into a curse. His own allies grew sick of the fact that they simply could not die. Being dragged back from death only to be patched up and thrown back into the meat grinder was a fate worse than falling in battle. Eventually, the very people he was keeping alive decided they had finally had enough of him. The general plunged a blade into Will's shoulder and told him he needed to feel the pain too. That was the end of the line. Without their medic, the army crumbled instantly. The dragons swarmed in, making sure not a single soul escaped the slaughter. Will learned the hard way that even a top-tier healer cannot survive a dragon's stomach. But stick with me, this is where the real story begins. Will wakes up 5 years in the past with every horrific memory of the apocalypse burned into his mind. He knows exactly what is coming. This time, he refuses to just hide in the back lines. He is going to master combat and join the offensive magic academy. He will not rely on anyone else to protect his loved ones ever again. Then, he spots the enrollment form sitting right there on the table. If that letter was real, it meant he had truly defied death and traveled back in time. Will steps outside to face the world in the year 416 of the Salsario calendar. It was exactly 1 week before the enrollment deadline for Hillig Academy. He really thought that Dragon had finished him off for good. He is not sure how it happened, but if his final wish was granted, he knows his path. He is enrolling at Schwartz, the battle magic school. Everyone knows healers cannot use attack magic. It was considered an absolute rule of the world. Will plans to smash that common sense to pieces. He knows the road ahead will be filled with massive obstacles, but he has his past memories and the healing mastery of a lifetime. If he uses every trick he knows, he can rewrite the future. This time, he will fight with his own 2 hands. Schwartz is the premier institution for turning mages into weapons of war. Their elite training could turn any wizard into a frontline beast. He knew a graduate in his past life, but the school's secrets were kept under lock and key. Only the students were allowed to know their internal theories. A healer trying to get into Schwartz was unheard of. He needed a way around the rules, and it probably meant he needed a lot of money. Nobles poured gold into the school because of its prestige. He wished he could have brought his massive fortune back from the future. But he had nothing. While the rewards for healers were great, the real problem was time. He could not earn enough gold before the deadline, no matter how hard he worked. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to him. It is his sister. In this timeline, she was still alive and well. She asks if his stomach was bothering him. Will just shakes his head and blames some dust in his eye. She laughs it off and tells him to have a great day. Will realizes he can prevent the tragedy that took her away. His healing magic is his greatest tool for protection. He can save everyone he lost before. He mentions he found a lead, leaving his sister confused about what he is planning. Now watch closely, because this Magic Academy Alliance is the massive organization that holds the key to everything Will needs to change. Back then, the president of that alliance was also the man running Schwartz Academy itself, but there was a mysterious period where he completely stopped showing up to any of the official meetings. At the director's private estate, the man was standing over a bed where his granddaughter lay unconscious, soaked in a cold sweat. He touches her face and whispers to Marie. The healer he brought today failed too, but he promises he will not stop looking for a cure. He begged her to stay strong. That is why the president had vanished from public life. He was drowning in his own desperation to save his dying granddaughter. In the original timeline, the healing magic of this era was not strong enough, and the girl did not make it. Suddenly, someone hops right through the window and asks if the director will let him handle the medical job. The man recognizes the intruder instantly. It was Will. He was known throughout the Alliance as a scholarship genius from Hillig with incredible talent in the healing arts. Though the director never pegged him as the type of person who breaks into houses, Will just scratches his head and gives a sheepish laugh. His old self would have been too scared to try this, but dying once has a way of making you much bolder. There is no time to lose for him or the girl. He knows he can cure her. The director demands to know what he wants in return. Will tells him they can talk business later. Right now, he just needs permission to start the treatment. The disease is moving even faster than his memory suggested. The two of them lock eyes in a tense, silent standoff. Will sits by her side, focused. And trust me, you and I will not want to miss what happens next. Alright, you and I are about to watch a top-tier healer try to survive an academy full of killers. Her eyes look like they could end your life in a heartbeat, but he just takes a breath, grabs her hand, and starts casting. Regressing to the past tanked his mana reserves, but those legendary high-level formulas are still burned into his brain. The cure for Zora's sickness won't even be discovered for another 2 years, but he already knows exactly how to fix it. Her eyes flutter open. Will finally exhales, thanking the heavens that his desperate gamble actually paid off. He smiles, telling her she's completely drained and needs to rest. She turns away, looking a bit shy, and nods. The director checks if Marie is truly all right. She confirms it, saying she hasn't felt this light and healthy in years. The old man is practically choking back tears right there. He says he finally understands. It's a massive weight off his shoulders. Later, in private, the director gives Will his heartfelt thanks. He offers Will anything he wants as a reward. Will smiles and tells him his request is actually pretty simple. His healing is already legendary, so there's nothing left to learn there. He wants a spot at Schwartz Academy instead. The director is stunned. Why would a healing prodigy join a combat academy? He asks if Will truly understands the risk. Will doesn't blink. The director stares into his eyes for a long moment. Then he agrees, promising to use his power to make it happen. They shake on it. Nearby, a man scoffs at the director's reckless move, calling him a crazy old fox for agreeing. He doubts a soft little healer like Will can even survive the brutal curriculum at a place like Schwartz. Orientation day arrives, and the director stands before the new students to deliver a powerful opening speech. Schwartz Academy is a legendary boarding school for battle mages, featuring a massive campus and a lethal curriculum. With endless training fields and royal backing, it produces the strongest warriors in the entire kingdom. It's the absolute peak of offensive magic education. And until now, not a single healer has ever stepped foot here. The director knows Will is in for a world of pain, but here, he might actually become a true mage. Will looks back on his previous life. This time, in this academy, he's going to flip his entire destiny. Classes start, and Will hits his first major wall immediately. His professor points at a target and tells him to begin. Smoke puffs out instead of fire. Pay attention, this is the moment he realizes his past skills aren't working. The professor bans him from class until he can hit a target. He's told to practice alone in the backfields. Will speaks up, asking if the professor could actually, teach him how the spell works first. You can't practice what you haven't been taught. But the professor just sneers, calling him a waste of time. Will asks to study the theory in the library instead. But the man's response is cold and blunt. There are 0 books for healers here. Suddenly, a blonde student launches a surprise spell right at Will's face. Will slams into the dirt. The blonde kid just laughs, mocking him for not even being able to dodge a basic shot. This is a place for warriors. There's no room for weaklings who can't even put up a simple shield. Basically, it's his own fault for getting hit. And wouldn't you know it, the professor actually agrees with the bully. He tells Will to crawl back to the healer academy. The bully adds that those softies will comfort him while he cries. Will sits on a bench, facing the cold reality. I know what you're thinking. Is he done? Not even close. He's making 0 progress with his offensive magic. He knew this would be a struggle, but this is next level difficult. Healing and offense use totally different energy sources. Mages use formulas to convert mana, and that defines the result. Dynamic mana is all about fire, explosions, and pure destruction. Healers only have static mana. But Schwartz is famous for making elite mages out of nothing, so there has to be a secret. If he can just figure out how to flip static mana into dynamic, he knows he can master the rest of it. But he can't even get into the classes. To everyone here, professors and students alike, a healer is just trash. Still, he refuses to quit. His hero started with almost no mana and became a legend right here at this academy. He knows coming here was the right move. But just blindly struggling isn't going to get him the results he needs. He doesn't have a library pass, but maybe it's time to break some rules and sneak in under the radar. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the night, asking him what he's doing out so late. She locks eyes with him. And trust me, you and I are about to see this story change forever. Alright, you and I are about to witness a fateful reunion that carries a heavy past. Lady Veronica was an elite battle mage, and in his previous life, they died side by side. Her blade could slice through anything, and now, he finally had the chance to meet her once more. But then he saw it, her hand was gripped tightly on her sword. She was already on high alert for intruders. She demanded to know his motives. Was he a threat or just some overeager student looking for trouble? Will analyzed her power instantly. Veronica was on a level far beyond someone like Apulpus. One wrong move and he was dead. He claimed simple curiosity, and luckily, she sheathed her blade. When he called her by name, she raised an eyebrow, questioning his lack of respect for a professor. Will was stunned. In his past life, the age gap between them had never felt this massive. She explained that she'd skipped grades and became a professor immediately. With her talent, it wasn't even surprising. Will saw his opening. He asked how to sign up for her classes, hoping to learn from her. Veronica admitted she didn't have a class yet. She'd skipped so much that she barely attended lectures herself. For now, she was just a teaching assistant tasked with answering questions from the younger students. The academy thought her young age would make her approachable, but the plan wasn't exactly working. Now, pay attention, because this is where Will makes a move that changes everything. He asked how a healer could learn offensive magic. Veronica frowned, noting something bizarre about his mana flow. So, he was the mysterious newcomer everyone in the academy was talking about. A healer learning combat magic is rare, But if there was a way to handle dynamic mana, she could teach it. Will was shocked, but she didn't hesitate. Even so, she warned that offensive magic was impossible because his mana was far too static. Any dynamic mana he forged would simply be swallowed up and dissolved into his static reserves. Standard formulas wouldn't work. Will asked desperately if there was truly no way for a healer to fight. She said no. His heart sank as his plan crumbled, but giving up wasn't in his nature. If a path didn't exist, he'd pave one himself. He thanked her, deciding to figure it out alone. But Veronica wasn't quite finished yet. True offensive magic was out, but there was another way for a healer to become a battle mage. She pointed to her sword. Swing this the right way, and it becomes a tool for killing. Then she gestured to a wooden chair nearby. It was built for sitting, but if you threw it at someone, it would knock them down with ease. Nobody views a chair as a weapon because that wasn't its original purpose. It's all about context. Utility depends entirely on the wielder. She reached out and touched him lightly, catching him off guard. Then she flicked his forehead. Even a simple touch can hurt. It all comes down to clever application. Anything can be a weapon if you're smart enough. Will understood instantly. You and I saw that coming, right? Using healing magic to actually deal damage is genius. And he couldn't believe he'd never thought of it. He'd never even considered it. Veronica explained that our narrow mindsets define our nature. That's why battle mages ignore healing, and why healers never bother to learn how to fight. But Will was different. Simply enrolling in this academy proved he was already a complete anomaly. Plus, his mana wasn't pure. Will wondered if his regression had altered his very foundation. Veronica told him to stop hiding and embrace the aggressive fury boiling inside his soul. If he did, his healing would become a force that crushes enemies. The next day, Will was still reeling. Her analogy was strange, but it had completely opened his eyes to new possibilities. He wondered why she didn't resist his crazy idea at all. It was strange she already had a theory ready. The instructor suddenly cut through his thoughts. Since the class count was uneven, Will was forced to join the sparring matches. The fact that he couldn't use offensive magic was strictly his own problem. If he got thrashed, he'd only have himself to blame. The matchups for the day were already set. Will was up against Omen, a noble with a bad attitude and a pack of loyal followers. And trust me, we're about to see if Will's new theory actually works in a real fight. Alright, stick with me because we are about to see a healer show a bully exactly what humiliation feels like. Will found this guy incredibly annoying in a way he never expected. Usually, he would have just ignored him. But today, he is actually feeling it. It is time to test Veronica's theory and finally hit back. He addresses Alpus formally and makes it clear that he will not accept a forfeit. Will says he is not giving up, but he has a major proposal. If he loses this fight, he will admit he has no talent and leave Schwartz. The instructor calls that a wise decision. But if Will wins, he wants a spot in the regular classes. The instructor asks what kind of nonsense that is. Alpus screams that a weakling is just clinging to a dream, and that breaking him will be pure fun. The instructor ends the talk right there. Hypotheticals are a waste of time. He tells them both to take their positions. With a hand raise, he calls for the match to begin. Alpus focuses his mana, summoning a ring of daggers around him. He tells Will to witness his blade creation magic. Dozens of swords appear from thin air, aimed right at the healer who cannot even use basic offensive spells. Will channels his magic and starts dodging the blades with perfect focus. Alpus is completely caught off guard. As he moves, Will reflects on his power. The true essence of healing is the manipulation of life. He can maximize vitality and natural recovery. But healing is not the only way to control life force. If he turns that into an offensive form, Alpus tells him to stop acting special just because he got lucky. Now pay attention, because this is where Will activates physical reinforcement and catches a blade with his bare hands. The other swords freeze in midair for a second before crashing to the floor with a dry clatter. This is exactly what he needed. He holds the dagger out and says he is borrowing it. He is ready. The crowd has no idea what just happened. Someone asks if that was actually offensive magic. Will knows it is just healing used for combat. Apparently, nobody else can tell the difference. Alpus is furious. He screams that Will must be joking and summons even more blades than before. A battle mage cannot lose to a healer. Will presses forward, deflecting every single strike thrown his way. It is not about the numbers. Alpus decides to make the swords massive to see how Will handles that. Will blocks the blow with his dagger. Alpus screams in disbelief and pushes his mana even harder. He adds a spin to the blades and throws everything he has. Will boosts his reinforcement and blocks it. Alpus shouts that this is impossible. Will looks at him and says he will heal himself later. Forgive me. He moves the dagger, but a wall of sand suddenly rises between them. Both boys step back in shock. The teacher has stepped in. He says there are other matches to finish and tells them both to stop. Will looks coldly at Alpus on the ground. He asks if he can finally join the regular classes now. Alpus grits his teeth and tells him to do whatever he wants. Will thanks him and walks away thinking, His offensive healing worked better than expected. He actually beat a talented battle mage his own age. He owes it all to Professor Veronica. There really is a path for a healer to become a warrior. He can finally become a battle mage. As he looks up at the academy flag, Alpus starts complaining to the instructor. He warns that his father will hear about this. The teacher should understand exactly what that implies. I know what you are thinking. He folds. They cannot have an arrogant healer around here. Back in the classroom, Will thinks about how he can finally attend the lessons he wanted. He is ready to learn everything about offensive magic. The teacher walks in, glares at Will, and starts class. Today the lesson is about magical tool creation. They are going to assemble ice bombs. He hands out the materials and tells them to follow instructions while infusing their mana. Will recognizes this format. At the Healer Academy, they did something similar, but only for making potions. It makes sense that here, they focus on making weapons instead. Everyone expects dynamic mana, but for tools, the nature of the energy matters less than the materials. He can handle this easily. He starts adding the powdered flame tree branch to the ice golem fragment. Watch this, because the mana stone glows strangely and Will has to throw it away immediately. You and I are starting with a bang. Will is flat on the floor among ice spikes after a massive explosion. The professor calls him out instantly, demanding to know what Will thinks he is even doing. Will tries to explain that the stone activated before he even infused his mana. But the professor doesn't care about excuses, he's docking points. Laughter erupts from the back of the room. Alulpus joins in, watching Will with a twisted look. Will just glares back with pure intensity. In the next class, a fiery salamander is positioned right in front of him. The professor mocks him, saying low-grade students belong in the front row. Before Will can even blink, the fiery salamander spits a blast of flames right at his face. He blocks it with a pot. The professor asks why he's even holding a cauldron in class. His cauldron is confiscated. So that's how they want to play it, Will thinks. They aren't going to make this easy. They let him sit through the lectures, but they have zero intention of actually letting him learn anything. A girl watches from a distance with an uneasy look. But the harassment is far from over. The professor keeps calling on Will for answers to material he's never even seen before. Someone lies to the instructor about Will's behavior, and he's forced to go without dinner because of it. Back in the dorm, Will stares at the ceiling. The wind in this school is blowing hard against him. A mountain of problems remains, but he is making real progress and won't let this petty harassment get in his way. Plus, he finally fought with his own hands and won. He really could become a battle mage after all. He grabs his textbook to study. The next day, Will shows up only to find the entire classroom completely empty. It's time for class, but the professor is nowhere to be found. Only that girl from before is there. It looks like the class moved and nobody bothered to tell them. Will asks if she thinks the room was moved. She admits she was thinking the exact same thing. She notes that since she's alone with the student everyone hates, that must be exactly what happened. I think we're on the same side, she says. Stick with me, she figured that hated loners tend to go well together. Her words are sharp, but her tone is sincere. Either way, Will is just glad to make a friend. He introduces himself, and she returns the gesture. Her name is Erica Glenn. Will tells her she's his first friend at the academy. Erica says that's almost hard to believe. He barely attends class, plus everyone knows healers are treated like weaklings in a fight. She's a battle mage who attends every class, yet she doesn't have any friends either. Even ignoring her personality, the discrimination against healers in this world runs deep. In his past life, he was recognized so quickly that he never had to face this kind of bias. At an academy focused on offensive magic, the prejudice is heavy. You and I know he'll have to fight it. Erica sighs and asks why he even chose Schwartz. Will says being a healer is no reason to stay out of the fight. Erica looks shocked. He has his reasons and asks about her. Erica says she's from a small countryside noble family. With no boys born, her parents are worried about their noble family line dying out forever. If she makes a name as a mage, she could become the family head. Will understands completely. Graduating from Schwartz would make it happen, but Erica admits she has zero talent for offensive magic. Because of that, she couldn't make friends. But now, she finally has someone by her side. As long as she has Will and even bigger failure, she won't feel so insecure about her own bad grades. Will warns her that things might not turn out like she thinks. Erica asks what he means. Will says they first need to find where the actual class is happening. Erica follows his lead. Will announces their arrival, but the professor coldly snaps that they are late and class has started. Will apologizes, explaining they were never told about the room change. The professor ignores him and orders Will to solve the board's problem. Erica is absolutely outraged. How are they supposed to know? Plus, Will has barely attended any classes yet. The professor warns that if he's right, it's dropped, but if he's wrong, he'll lose even more points. Alulpus mocks him, but Will just picks up the chalk and starts writing while the class watches in silence. Trust me, you need to see this. All right, You and I are about to see a massive flex, as Will finishes the magic circle, turns to the stunned professor, and casually asks what he thinks. The professor stood there frozen. It was perfect. He told Will to sit down while Alpus let out a sharp gasp. Erica was completely baffled. How did he do that? Will just returned to his seat with a calm smile, acting like nothing happened. When class ended, Erica chased him down. She had to know how he solved a problem that complex so easily. Will explained that while it looked scary, it was just a simple application of the examples he had studied in the textbook. Erica was stunned. Did he study that alone? Will just nodded, saying he had finished the book yesterday. The Schwartz textbook was flawless. It covered everything from basic theory to the most advanced magical applications. No fluff, just pure magic. Since he was always a theory genius, reading it once was enough to master the content. Plus, the logical reasoning he brought over from his past life made understanding offensive magic way easier than he expected. He pulled an all-nighter, but it was fun. Erica was totally speechless. This stuff was way too dense to learn without a teacher. She really thought Will was the weakest link here. If he was this talented, where did that leave her? She begged him not to leave her behind, and Will gently comforted her. He promised to teach her anything she didn't get. They were friends, and Erica was genuinely touched. Will knew he didn't come to Schwartz for friendship, but Erica was useful. Keeping her around would definitely open some doors. He told her he needed a favor. Classes weren't just about reading books, after all. Next up was General Offensive Magic. This was the exact class that got him kicked out of every school before this. Now watch this, because he's about to reveal a secret plan that you and I would never expect, as he explains the difference to Erica. General Offensive Magic relied on fixed formulas. They were structured so that anyone who studied them could cast the spell. Unique magic was different. It was created deep within the soul and only worked for that one specific user. Schwartz had separate tracks for both. In Unique Magic, he could fake it with his offensive healing, but not here. For General Offensive Magic, if you can't cast the exact spell, you get an automatic failing grade. No exceptions. The professor made it very clear. Will might be a genius at theory, but the practical exams were a different beast. If he couldn't manifest offensive magic, he was done. The goal was simple. Hit the target with a fireball. It is the most basic spell, but without it, he could forget about graduating. The professor suspected Will cheated with healing magic during the duel. He figured Will just buffed his physical stats with healing magic. But in this class, an incompetent student like him had no place and should just quit. Then the professor noticed something impossible. Will was actually smiling, and there was a real fire glowing in the palm of his hand. Will felt a wave of satisfaction. Yesterday, he had Erica cast a general fireball spell while he watched closely. He secretly stored that spell inside a salamander tail, hiding it in his hand while healing the burns instantly. Erica wanted to know if that was even possible for a healer. She wondered who the hell Will really was. Right before releasing the power, Will used his healing magic to trigger the flame charge hidden inside that tail. To everyone just watching him, it looked like a perfect fireball appeared from nowhere. The blast flew straight and incinerated the training dummy. You and I saw that smirk. Let's see how this professor handles being proven wrong when Will asks what he thinks. That was definitely a standard flame spell. Maybe the boy really learned it. Will passed and went back to line. Erica was shocked while Alpus gritted his teeth. Later, they met to demand some real answers. The professor was just as confused, but Alpus really didn't care. A healer actually dared to humiliate him. He wasn't about to share a class with a peasant, or he would tell his powerful father everything. The professor tried to say that was going too far. Alpus snapped, telling him to use any dirty trick to get that guy out of his sight. Left alone, the professor knew this was risky. If he got caught, his career was over, regardless of what some spoiled rich kid wanted. But sometimes, you have to take a gamble to keep your power. He wasn't about to let some upstart healer ruin his life. He decided to deal with the boy himself. After school, he caught Will at the training grounds. He cut right to the chase with a cold look. And that is where we leave it, trust me. You and I need to see what this professor does next. Trust me. You and I are about to see if this kid survives a professor's wrath after skipping class. Will wanted to snap back that the absences were actually the professor's fault, but he realized it just wasn't worth the trouble. He explained that he got the notes from a classmate and studied everything himself. As far as he was concerned, there was no issue. The professor stood his ground. If you miss class, extra lessons are mandatory, and the teacher gets to decide exactly what those look like. It is going to be a simulated battle against the professor himself. Will paused, processing the insanity of a professor fighting a student. To make it fair, the teacher offered him a slight advantage. Given the massive skill gap, landing just one hit is enough to pass. Since he's being so generous, Will has no reason to back down. But the professor is hiding his true thoughts. With his high-level magic, he knows this boy's attacks will never even touch him. His plan is simple. Trash the kid until he finally understands the overwhelming difference in their strength. Only then would he listen. Will agrees to the terms, And the professor smiles while activating his first magic circle. Will recognizes this magic. It manipulates the very ground beneath them. He dodges the first pylon, but another strike slams down from above. He ducks just in time as another pillar erupts. The professor sneers, asking if running away is the only thing he actually knows how to do. Will stands tall, quickly analyzing the spell. This isn't creation magic, it's manipulating the ground that is already there. That explains the insane speed and the wild variety of attack angles. Still, it's not impossible to dodge. He leaps, evades the strikes, and charges forward. The professor triggers another circle, raising massive walls on both sides to pin Will down. A confident smile spreads across his face. Will uses the walls as a springboard and vaults over them, closing the distance. But just as he swings, the professor turns himself into solid stone. Will pulls back from the spikes. The professor says the boy is way too weak. He says that puny power can't break his absolute defense. He's never seen a healer use magic to attack, and calls it a cheap imitation. In his eyes, wanting to be a battle mage with such pathetic magic is honestly just laughable. Will remains calm. Through his healing studies, he learned that humans naturally live their lives while unconsciously holding back their true physical strength. The reason is simple. The human body can't actually handle its own full power. If anyone tries to push past that natural limit, their own body will shatter. The professor just sneers at the explanation. To him, Will is just lecturing because he knows he can't win against real offensive magic. Will calmly explains that even if you remove the limiter to release more force, the body is going to get wrecked. But since he's a healer, he doesn't care if his arm breaks. That revelation catches the professor completely off guard. Now, pay attention, because Will's about to do something insane. He'll just heal himself instantly as he breaks his own limits. He moves with 100% power. The punch lands clean, sending the professor's glasses flying through the air. Will tells him it's a mistake to judge a student's limits so blindly. He learned that the moment Professor Veronica suggested using healing magic for combat, declaring something impossible is the ultimate foolishness. By breaking those mental walls, he can become infinitely stronger. But before he can even finish his sentence, Will spins and narrowly dodges a sudden strike from the enraged professor. They stand face to face. The professor clutches his broken glasses, and he is looking absolutely livid. Will notes that the professor should approve now that he's landed a hit. The professor just tells him to shut his mouth. Since nobody is around, he refuses to admit he was punched by a lowly healer and launches a massive volley of stones. Will points out that releasing his limiter isn't just for punching. He stomps the ground and rockets forward at a terrifying speed. The professor can't even process it. His stone walls aren't rising fast enough to block this insane speed. You and I both know he's in trouble. He squeezes his eyes shut, but he's frozen and can't move a muscle. The blows keep raining down, and time seems to slow to a crawl. In his mind, he's desperately begging Will to stop. The pain is agonizing, way worse than a normal hit. He can't run, and he can't even find the air to scream. He just begs in silence for the nightmare to end. Suddenly, he's thrown backward, his body slamming hard into the dirt. Will walks over and says that for him, it only lasted an instant. The professor demands to know what kind of trickery Will used. Will replies that unlike the professor, he can actually explain exactly what happened. Right as the punch landed, he activated a sensory enhancement spell. It was originally for patients with failing sight and hearing. By pushing his own reaction speed to the absolute limit, trust me, you and I wouldn't want to be him 1 second. Felt like dozens of moments, and he felt every single bit of that pain. Alright, you and I are jumping back in as Will asks if he passed. The professor says yes, but Will adds one more thing. Deep-rooted prejudice is hard to kill, but he warns the professor that if he stays on this path, he will make sure the man learns exactly how much pain his own body is capable of feeling. All he wants is to attend classes in peace. Could the professor actually guarantee that? Later, in the hallways of Schwartz Academy, the professor walks alone, his mind racing after that intense encounter. He thought healers were just weak, obedient servants for mages. But Will? He is different. He has real combat skills. More than that, he has real killing intent. Alpus shows up, mocking Will and predicting his expulsion. The professor snaps, telling him to shut his mouth and stop messing with the kid. Treating Will like a common healer is a mistake Alpus cannot afford to make. He scoffs, reminding the professor that his father's influence could change everything in an instant. The professor just tells him to go for it. He stops, thinks for a moment, and adds that if Alpus actually went running to his father, now watch this. There is a good chance Alpus gets expelled, not Will. Instead of the Omen family making a move, Will is the one showing his claws now. Alpus is left standing alone in the hallway, fuming. He slams his fist against the wall, cursing the situation. A few days later, Will is back in class, yawning. Things are peaceful. The professor must have talked to Alpus, because now he just glares with resentment instead of acting out. That lets Will focus on his studies, but he knows this isn't enough. To rewrite humanity's future, He needs to reach a whole new level of power. Using healing magic for physical enhancement is a solid theory, but currently, he is just punching and kicking with brute force. Intimidation works, but compared to the versatility of a battle mage, he still has a long way to go. He needs a new approach, so he calls for Veronica. She mentions she has something to tell him first. Will asks what's up. She tells him he has done well and has become a hot topic among the faculty. A healer surviving at Schwartz is a massive achievement, even if most of the professors hate it. Will figured as much. He asks if she is hiding the fact that she is the one who advised him. Veronica says she isn't hiding anything. She just hasn't had a chance to mention it to her colleagues. Will realizes she is an outsider too, but he is just relieved she is okay. Everything happened because of her advice, and he'd feel terrible if he put her in a bad spot. Veronica tells him not to worry. Honestly, she is actually grateful to him. Like she said, the nature of healer spirits means nobody would ever test her theory. Then, she draws her sword. You and I can see where this is going. She is curious to see a real combat healer in action. Since he wants advice on getting stronger, she wants to assess his current skill level herself. Will thinks a duel is overkill, but she reminds him there are no breaks on the battlefield before lunging. Caught off guard, Will barely blocks her strike with a dagger. Veronica's raw strength starts to overwhelm him. She presses forward with blow after blow. Even with his speed boosted by magic, Will can barely keep up. Close up, he realizes it isn't just about her speed. Her movements are refined, calculated for a relentless barrage. Relying on physical enhancement alone has reached its limit. He has one shot, using a burst of speed he hasn't revealed yet. Focusing power into his foot, he goes for a thrust. Veronica is surprised, but she deflects the strike with perfect precision. She drops low and snaps his blade. Will stares in shock as his weapon hits the floor. Veronica sheathes her sword, impressed. She didn't expect him to make her use her magic sword. Will notes that she barely broke a sweat during the exchange. She expected a healer trying to be a mage. But Will is genuinely talented and clearly in a class of his own. Will thanks her. She admits she likes his ambition, but agrees that pure effort isn't enough. No matter how much he pushes his body, there is a hard ceiling on what he can do. A sword isn't just for striking, she says. It can thrust or be thrown. There are other ways, and that's where we leave it. Will is realizing he is missing one thing: real combat experience. Alright, you and I are watching Will search for a real battle to sharpen his magic. Veronica asks if he missed something during their spar. Will asks if he should keep training with her. Veronica says it is a fine idea, but a major training exercise is coming up soon. Will considers the offer. Something similar existed in his past life too. A joint exercise between 3 schools, Schwartz for offense, the Healing Academy Hillig, and the Sword Academy Silburn. Students from different schools form groups to tackle real-world monster subjugation missions together. He skipped it back then at Hillig. But in this life, he plans to slay monsters and rewrite the future. This will be his first official hunt. Veronica stays quiet for a beat before explaining he has to prove his worth in the selection exam first. Rumors say a literal prodigy is among the freshman class this year. Will needs to claim first place. He asks about the rules, and Veronica reveals that candidates will fight each other directly. Around 100 students sign up annually, but only the strongest make the cut. Everything comes down to combat, pay attention here, because this is where things get real. Few people would jump into this alone, but that bold attitude is the Schwartz style. Suddenly, memories from his past life start rushing back to him. He wonders what his old mentor is up to. Veronica warns him that this year's prodigy is already stronger than some teachers. Reaching first won't be easy. Will assumes the kid is tougher than the professors and asks if Veronica has met him yet. She says a teacher is shielding him from any outside questions. Will senses there's more to the story. She tells him to relax, she'll personally oversee his training. Will thanks her. Fast forward to the exam day, and time has flown by in the blink of an eye. He's prepared everything he can. It's go time. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to him from the crowd. It's Director Alnarum Goldran. He says it's been a while and that his granddaughter has been doing well since they last met. Despite Will saving the girl, the director feels bad for losing touch. He knows adjusting to Schwartz must have been a brutal experience. Will admits it was a struggle early on, but he's doing completely fine now. He boldly claims he's aiming for the top spot. The director just laughs, clearly impressed by his spirit. A cold, unfriendly voice cuts through their conversation. It's a professor, and he doesn't sound happy at all. He calls Will's goal a joke. As the training supervisor, he claims he'd love to personally teach a lesson to overconfident punks like him. Will knows this man immediately. In his past life, he had crossed paths with him, the Purple Lightning Goat, a hero from the Great War, famous for his devastating offensive magic feats. Honestly, Will has zero good memories of this guy. Goat claims that effort can never replace raw combat talent. Since Will is a healer, Goat thinks he's pathetic. Will just glares back, ice cold. Alnarum steps in, saying the exam starts soon and the results will speak for themselves. No point in wasting breath on arguments here. Goat agrees and mentions that Will's actual opponent is the real deal. A young man with long white hair walks toward them. Serious blue tea. And there he is, the prodigy. You and I both know Will has to beat him for the top spot. The two lock eyes, and a spark of competitive fire ignites between them instantly. Alnaram loves the passion, but it's time to move. They all start heading toward the main arena. The stands are buzzing as participants line up. Will spots Erica in the crowd and asks if she's actually joining in. She sighs, saying she'll lose attendance credit if she doesn't participate in this mess. Opus is glaring at Will with pure rage. Will just smiles at Erica, who clearly wants to be anywhere else. Alnaram takes the stage, proud to see so many challengers this year. He tells them to let passion and fighting spirit guide their hearts. He announces that the preliminary round is a pure survival match. Only those left standing will advance. Will does the math. 100 people on one battlefield is going to be total chaos. Alnaram tells them not to sweat the numbers. He raises his staff, ready to start the show. A massive portal erupts under their feet, turning the floor into a swirling starry sky. Before the students can even process it, they're gone. Will suddenly finds himself standing alone in the middle of a dense forest. He recognizes the woods behind the academy. A voice echoes nearby, asking if he can hear the transmission clearly. Everyone's been scattered. Stick around, because this first real hunt is about to get absolutely wild. Starting points were left to chance. Will muttered that mass teleportation was insane. Stick with me, because the director just ignored him and declared that the selection exam has officially begun. Will jumped instantly, landing high on a tree branch. He suppressed his presence to stay hidden, masking every vital sign. But when he looked down, 3 students were already caught in a chaotic 3-way brawl nearby. One student commanded his golem to charge. Meanwhile, a girl rushed both of them, swinging a massive magic hammer. A third student unleashed a blizzard, freezing them both solid. Will watched the entire spectacle with a sharp, calculating eye. This was the perfect chance to analyze different offensive spells. Staying on the defensive just to pass felt like a waste. Besides, he had a few theories of his own he wanted to test out. The golem user stood victorious over the others. He bragged loudly, claiming everyone must have seen the overwhelming power of his construct. Will appeared behind him mid-sentence. He grabbed the boy's head and instantly triggered a consciousness disruption spell. The boy collapsed instantly. Will looked down at him for a quiet moment. This technique manipulates life force to force a blackout. It requires direct physical contact, making it difficult against stronger foes, but it allows him to neutralize targets without causing a single injury. Professor Veronica would be pleased. He spun, dodging a volley of knives that whistled past, thudding deep into the ground all around his feet. Will sighed. Opus, you really never learn. The noble claimed he didn't care about talk, he only cared about passing the exam using every dirty trick in the book. His 2 lackeys moved in to flank Will immediately. One conjured magic knives while the second coated the blades in lethal poison. The third used shadows to multiply the blades. Ulpus warned that even a tiny scratch from this poisonous swarm would be the end of him. With so many projectiles, Will's speed didn't matter. There was simply no way to dodge them all. The blades flew. Will calculated his moves. He could purge the poison with healing magic. But taking that many hits, even with physical enhancement, was going to be a massive problem. He readied a healing spell, then something suddenly intercepted the attack. The golem blocked everything, acting as a massive shield for Will. Pay attention here that golem belonged to the boy Will just defeated. Will had figured it out. Healing magic usually only works on the living, but this golem was actually fueled by its summoner's own blood. He lacked precise control over it, but by injecting his own life force, he could guide it. The golem charged, punching one subordinate before literally sitting on the other one to pin him down. Ulpus whined about his men being beaten so easily, but Will was already standing right before him. He grabbed his face. Good night. Ulpus blacked out. Elsewhere in the forest, the golem was already clashing with a powerful water spell. Will watched from afar, feeling satisfied. His physical enhancement usually limited him to close-range combat, but the golem covered that weakness perfectly. Now, he had time to study even more student magic. You feel that? A massive hurricane just formed. Will frowned. What is happening now? The gust roared toward them. Will jumped as the cyclone swept through, knocking the golem and several nearby students to the ground instantly. As Will landed, he sensed someone else approaching through the debris. This was serious. Just as he expected, this new opponent possessed skills that wouldn't be easy to overcome. Will weighed his options, but the director's voice suddenly boomed through the air. That is enough. The preliminaries are over, and all 4 of you have passed. The main event would happen tomorrow in the arena. For now, they were free to recover. The teleport spell began to glow. Will stared at his rival from across the clearing. Sirius stared back, locking eyes until they both vanished into light. Will was already looking forward to their clash the next morning. Back in his dorm, he opened his journal to log his new observations. He planned his strategy for the finals. The night was quiet, but out in the hallway, things were starting to get loud. A few nobles were complaining. That commoner was way too strong, and he even healed the people he knocked out. Shouldn't they just give up? Ulpus told them to shut up, claiming they only felt that way because they came from such weak families. The Omen family's creed was simple. Healers have no place among elite mages. If his father found out a healer was outperforming him, he would be disgraced. The others just shared a look. They told him to do whatever he wanted before walking off, and trust me, you and I are going to see some serious fireworks tomorrow. Stick with me, because we are about to see what happens when a noble pushes a healer too far. Ulpus is fuming, and a sudden knock hits Will's door. It is way too late for a social call. Will senses trouble before opening the door to find Ulpus waiting for him. The noble flashes a fake smile, asking Will if the moon doesn't look especially beautiful tonight. Will cuts to the chase, demanding to know his plan. The noble just claims he wants a peaceful chat. He admits with total honesty that he hates healers and has already been working hard to get Will kicked out. Will already neutralized those tricks. He is done going in circles. The demand is simple. Leave Schwartz. Will respects the bluntness, but wants to know why Ulpus made him the villain. Ulpus snaps back. No reason is needed to hate healers. For the Omen family, healers are trash sent to a remote branch. Even his own brother was sent away. People mocked him, but he just laughed. A pathetic healer is nothing compared to a mage. Will calls those pretty messed up teachings for a prestigious family. Ulpus agrees completely. Healers have no place in a school like Schwartz. When Will refuses, Ulpus brings up the family he needs to protect. His servants did the research. Will has a sister in a remote village. He must miss her. If Ulpus gives the instructions, what would happen to her? He lets the threat hang. After asking if Will is convinced now, the healer simply says yes. Ulpus says, "Pack up, now watch," because Will suddenly grabs him by the throat. Will slams him back and twists his arm into a lock. Ulpus begs him to stop before it breaks. Will has decided. A loud crack rings out as Ulpus gasps for air on the floor. He wheezes that the academy and his father won't stay silent. Will heals the arm instantly. Ulpus looks relieved for a second, until he feels the next crack. You saw that coming. Will breaks it again, promising to do this until Ulpus finally begs. Ulpus finally pleads. Will lets go and speaks with terrifying calm. Threaten him? Fine. But touch his sister, and he will never let it go. It is better to beg now, while Will is only breaking his spirit instead of his entire body. Ulpus stays on the floor, trying to understand. This is a demon wearing a healer's face. He realized too late that crossing this guy is a fate much worse than death. The night ends with a warning. Never touch his family again. Will stretches out, feeling refreshed. Now it is time to sleep, until the main tournament begins tomorrow morning. Hours later, the tournament begins. Ulpus watches calmly from his seat. Bod and Veronica settle in nearby. Will knows the 4 finalists will now face off in intense one-on-one battles. He can't believe she actually made it. He turns around and finds Erica standing directly in front of him. Erica explains that she built walls of fire to win without direct combat. Will thinks back and knows she could not have survived just by doing that. Erica smiles, teasing that since they are friends, he should go easy on her. Will refuses. She's aiming for a high-rank evaluation today. A professor announces the battle. Erica prepares a fire spell and casts it at Will. He blocks it, thinking it is just standard fire. He can regenerate through this easily. He even feels a bit sorry for Erica, because he knows he is going to have to hit her. Something is off. This fire is different. Erica launches another fireball and warns him it is not over. Will dodges. He realizes the old flames are still burning. Her magic is persistent fire. Constant hits will become dangerous. He remembers those walls of flame from the preliminaries and how hard they were to break through. He thought it was just a special item. But this power is all from Erica's own influence. You and I saw her real power. It matches her stubborn personality perfectly. The crowd goes wild. All right, you and I are about to watch a healer prove everyone wrong as the crowd screams for Erica to take him down. She wonders if she can really win, but she is not backing down now. After all, she survived the preliminaries too. She looks Will in the eye and tells him it is time to surrender. Will just smiles and says he was actually ready to counter. He heals his mangled hand right in front of her as he speaks. Erica fires off another spell to make sure she wins. But Will just grins. If those flames won't go away, he'll just use them to attack. Flames wrap around Will's fists as he charges toward her. Erica takes one look at him, holds up her hands, and immediately surrenders. She drops to her knees as the winner is announced. Will sighs. Even after winning, nobody seems to respect a healer. The crowd is furious. They scream at Erica for giving up so easily when she calls herself an offensive mage. Erica looks at the angry crowd and whispers that they were just cheering for her. She feels terrible about letting them down. Will helps her up and tells her not to worry. He genuinely thinks she fought well enough to pass the exam anyway. Her eyes light up, but Bode shows up and ruins the mood. He sneers that healers are nothing but worthless trash in a real fight. He tells Erica that surrendering to trash makes her even worse. Since she failed so miserably, she needs to get lost immediately. Will asks if that is really how a supervisor should talk to students. Bode just snaps back that he is the supervisor of this battlefield. He starts walking away before he even finishes his sentence, showing zero respect for anyone there. He tosses a cold remark over his shoulder that only one person here is actually moving forward. Suddenly, Sirius appears behind Will. Will is shocked by how fast he is. This guy clearly knows how to move. Will asks if Sirius agrees with Professor Bode. Sirius calmly says that strength is everything, and since the professor is strong, he is right. Will says he understands, but Sirius adds that he doesn't think Will is weak either. He better be right. Will stares him down with a serious look, serious blue note. Will remembers his past life. He had heard of a monstrously powerful offensive mage his age who was famous on the northern frontier. That mage's wind could turn everything to dust. But in their final battle, Will was the one left standing. He was the winner. Will realizes that with Bode's attitude, he will never get any respect unless he takes the top spot. He decides he is going to win. Sirius nods. The professor officially starts the final match. Sirius channels all his power and launches a massive blast directly at Will. Will dives to the side, then lunges forward. But Sirius doesn't even flinch. He just uses a gust of wind to blow Will away. Will blocks with his hand, trying to find a gap. He thinks he sees the pattern, but he can't get close. The two face off again. Sirius admits that Will's speed is actually becoming a real problem for him. He prepares another spell and releases a shockwave. Will realizes this blast is meant to send him flying out of the arena. Pay attention now, because Will is about to pull out a move that changes everything. He slams his hand down. A massive tree erupts from the arena floor, growing into a giant shield in seconds. Erica is stunned. That was healing magic too. Somehow, Will has gotten even stronger than before. He looks at Veronica and smiles. Veronica starts to say something, but Will quickly cuts her off to explain his trick. He simply poured life force into the plants to make them grow at insane speeds. He found offensive plant magic in a bookstore and realized he could use it. Now he has different tactics for every type of plant he grows, but the strain is too much. He loses consciousness and falls right into Veronica's arms. She asks if he is all right. You and I can see he's drained his mana, and Will wonders why the book never mentioned how heavy this is. Destroying is easier than healing. Healing magic burns through way more power. Trying to create something new with it is much less efficient than regular magic. Will knows he has to be careful. He never had the talent for standard offensive magic, so he has to push past his own limits. On the other side, Sirius raises his hand. He fires off wind blasts that slice the massive tree in half. Will watches closely. A tornado for defense, a blast for power, and wind blades for obstacles. He is reading Sirius's every move. There are absolutely no openings. Sirius is every bit the top-tier candidate everyone said he was. But Will is determined to get stronger too. He doesn't hesitate and leaps towards Sirius with everything he has got left. Sirius tells him it's useless. No matter how many times he tries, Will is just sent flying back again. But even as he falls, Will is smiling. Sirius is confused. Then, a tree slams into his shoulder. Sirius is shocked, but Will explains the tornado doesn't protect the underground. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. Alright, stick with me, we are diving into a showdown that flips the entire Academy power system on its head. Will wonders if Sirius actually cares about Professor Bode. To everyone else, they seem like a totally mismatched pair. Sirius simply says Bode is strong and a good teacher. Will retorts that someone like him should not need that. Even though he is from a noble family, Sirius explains that magic is everything. Age and gender mean absolutely nothing. The strongest rules the clan while everyone else fights to replace them. His own father never even taught him magic. Will finally gets it. Sirius follows the professor because it is the fastest way to gain the power he needs. He asks if they are done, because his shoulder is starting to hurt like crazy. Everyone is stunned by his casual tone. Will smiles, but behind Sirius, a massive wind dragon begins to spiral into existence. Now pay attention, Sirius launches a massive wind dragon, and Will realizes just how deadly this situation is about to get. He has been thinking about this. Offensive mages usually hold back their real power during training matches. That is exactly why he fights for real. Talent, family, or a tragic past. None of that makes you a winner. Everyone is carrying their own weight. That is why he is determined to beat Sirius right here, right now. Will admits he was just thinking out loud, but now he is planting his ultimate seed. Vines explode from the ground. The leaves unfurl instantly. Will summons the world tree, Yggdrasil, pouring every ounce of his remaining magic into the spell. Normally, this tree takes years to grow. Forcing it like this burns through mana faster than any other plant in existence. but the more energy he feeds it, the more dangerous it becomes. The massive tree lunges straight for the dragon. Sirius sighs as the wind dragon shreds the tree, but then he pauses. He watches the broken pieces fly through the air, glowing brilliantly under the sun. Sirius is confused. How is it still moving? Will explains that this specific plant possesses an unbelievable level of vitality. Even a single, broken branch will never stop growing. While Sirius was generating the wind dragon, his defenses were completely wide open. The world tree did not waste the opening and hit him dead on. Sirius hits the dirt hard. Though injured, Will points his blade at him. Sirius admits defeat as the final buzzer sounds. Can you believe that? Our healer just beat the prodigy in a straight-up duel, leaving the entire crowd in shock. Sirius sighs, staring at the ground. Will offers a hand, telling him it was close, exactly what he expected from a genius. Sirius just mutters that he still failed. Will is confused because, to him, it was a fantastic, hard-fought battle. Suddenly, Bode appears out of nowhere and blasts Sirius with a bolt of lightning. The boy collapses onto the grass. Bode kicks the vines away, pulls Sirius up, and tells him he failed. He promises to put him through hell again. The students whisper about how brutal the professor is. Bode glares at everyone, saying the same applies to all the idiots watching. He refuses to accept a healer taking first place. A heavy silence falls as Will wonders if this has gone too far. He won the fight, but that does not mean Sirius is weak. If they fought again, but Bode cuts him off mid-sentence. Bode tells Will not to even speak to him. All that talk about potential is just pure garbage. On a real battlefield, power is everything. If you lose, you are just trash that is destined to die. It is that simple. Will cannot believe Bode is treating his own student like this. Finally, he speaks. He proved his strength by winning. Being a healer does not make him weak. Bode just scoffs at that level of power. Flashback to the past. Bode and his classmates used to pin Will against the wall. Will argued that while healers do not fight, they save everyone with magic. Without teamwork, humanity would have no chance of surviving. Bode went silent before explaining. His students fought on the front lines to buy time so the others could escape safely. But those cowards were slaughtered by weak monsters as they tried to run. The brave students died for nothing, and the healers were too far away from the battle to even try saving them. That is why Sirius had to die because of trash like them. Bode pulls back his fist, eyes filled with tears. Will admits Bode is right. Being weak means being powerless when it actually matters. But with monsters getting more dangerous, the strong cannot be selfish. They have a duty to protect others. Will clenches his fist and declares that people with nothing must become strong. He then asks directly, if he beats Bode, will he be recognized? Bode just smiles and says once a match is declared, all the weak people should just get out of the way. I know what you are thinking. Bode is hiding his true feelings, but this challenge changes everything. The young man makes it clear that during the selection, he will be the one making the rules. The presenter watches. All right, you and I are about to see a clash that defies all expectations. It is Professor Bode versus Will. Bode cracks his knuckles with a smirk, promising to prove that Will is completely out of his league. Will knows his mana is hitting 0 against his strongest opponent yet. Winning head-on is impossible. He needs to heal first. Pay attention here, Bode is already on him, calling him way too slow. A purple lightning bolt slams into Will's face. Bode stands over him, listing the 3 reasons why his victory is absolutely guaranteed. Distance to suppress the enemy, speed to negate reactions, and enough raw power to end it instantly. The enemy is rendered helpless, and it is game over. He mutters that Will probably can't even hear his voice anymore, but Will asks where that final blow went. He is still standing. He actually knows all about Professor Bode's lightning. To survive this, he has to force the current away from his body's vital core. If the brain fries, no magic can fix it. So, he improvised a blood circuit to flush the electricity out fast. Taking it through his arm and out his leg minimized the impact. He can take this. Time to strike back. Bode just laughs, mocking Will for barely hanging on while his body is in total shambles. Will activates his physical boost, but his mana evaporates instantly, leaving his entire body frozen in place. He can't move a muscle. Bode explains the one absolute rule of his magic. Anyone hit by that purple bolt is paralyzed. Will tries moving anyway, which honestly starts to annoy the professor. He notes that Will was doing just fine a second ago, then blasts him with another lightning strike. In the stands, Erica is in tears. Will curses his luck because Bode is genuinely, terrifyingly strong. That unique magic has 0 openings. All that arrogance? It is earned. Even so, Will refuses to stay down. This is his very last seed and final spell. You and I are about to see if this gamble pays off. The aquatic treasure tree erupts from the ground. It pulls massive water from the earth to act as a shield, grounding the electricity. Bode screams, demanding to know what it is. Even the other students are stunned. But with one clean strike, Bode splits the tree in 2. Will's back is against the wall. Bode walks up with a cruel smile, calling the defensive move pathetic until he spots something strange growing on the broken wood. Mushrooms are rapidly sprouting all over the surface of the tree. Bode is confused, while Will can't believe his crazy plan actually worked this well. Some fungi thrive after lightning strikes. When a forest burns to ash, these are the first things to grow back. This specific mushroom is one of them, but it has one very deadly hidden trait. Suddenly, Bode's body feels weak. There it is, the tiny opening Will was waiting for. He pours everything into one dash, closing the gap with terrifying speed. But Bode is still smiling. He throws a lightning-charged punch. Will coughs up blood and collapses. Idiot, Bode mutters, not even looking back. He claims total superiority in close combat too, thanks to his unique lightning magic. By reinforcing his own body, he's basically unstoppable. Will lies in the dirt, realizing that even after everything, he still couldn't win. This is your end, Bode declares, looming over him with an electrified fist raised high. Suddenly, a blade is at his throat. Veronica stands behind him, her voice cold and steady. She tells Professor Bode he's gone too far. The professor just sighs, telling the new hire not to interfere. She insists the match is over. Continuing now is just unnecessary cruelty against a student. Bode argues that Will can heal and keep going, but Veronica snaps back he has no stamina or mana left. He is just wasting her fighting spirit now. Both masters release their crushing energy. That is enough. A powerful voice drops from above as Al-Nairam descends, hovering between the two warriors. He tells them that teachers fighting each other is pure nonsense. He orders Bode to stop immediately. The principal's gaze is absolute. Bode backs off, and Al-Nairam turns to apologize to Veronica. He admits he didn't explain the situation clearly enough. He clears his throat to address the crowd. With that, the selection camp's main event is finished. Everyone is dismissed from the arena. Will tries to heal his broken body, but he is completely tapped out. He hates being so powerless. Suddenly, Veronica scoops him up in her arms. Trust me, you and I need to see what happens next. You did well, she says. Rest now, we'll stay silent, and trust me, he is just getting started. He nods, but the words feel empty. It wasn't enough, not even close. The night drags on while Will stays awake, haunted by what's coming. That was the true power of a first-class offensive mage. It wasn't just about raw destruction. Their tactical mastery was on another level entirely, something he could barely track. Yet, even with monsters like that on their side, humanity still lost everything. He needs more power. Morning comes, and he heads to Al-Nairam's room. The old man just smiles. Finally, Will, my wounds are fine, Will says. Once my mana returns, my body just stitches itself back together. Good, because the training camp is happening. As the winner of the main event, you are expected to be there. Sirius and Erica made the cut too. Will is confused though. Professor Bode said everyone failed and there was no winner. Al-Nairam just gives a knowing smirk. Apparently, this little lie happens every single year without fail. Telling the kids they failed is a psychological trick. It creates a sense of desperation that pushes them past their limits. In reality, most of them pass anyway. It felt weird to Will at first, but the more he thought about it, it made sense. See, in his past life, Bode was a legendary hero who fought on the front lines until the bitter end, protecting a world he did not even like. That was his nature. Being a strict teacher was his only way of keeping them alive. Al-Nairam explains the plan. Will is assigned as an offensive mage in a mixed group from different academies, and their job is simple monster subjugation. Now pay attention, because this is the first time since his regression that Will faces real monsters. 5 years after this exact moment in his previous life, everything ended. Monsters were the direct cause of humanity's ruin. But originally, the term just meant any creature with magic. They weren't always evil. Sure, they attacked humans sometimes, but it was just survival, nature being nature. They were basically wild neighbors. But in 2 years, the red moon will rise, and everything we know will change forever. The beasts will turn vicious. They'll start grouping up, killing humans for the sheer joy of it. And 2 years after that nightmare begins, the Demon King finally descends. Humanity crumbled instantly. Entire nations were wiped away. The offensive mages, the most vital assets on any battlefield, were slaughtered one by one. The knights fared no better. Even the healers, tucked safely away from the front lines, were swallowed by the chaos. Will died there. Almost no one made it out alive. Within months, the human race was on the edge of extinction. He won't let history repeat itself. He needs to surpass everyone from his past life. He needs enough power to stop mass invasions before they even start. And if possible, uncover the truth behind that cursed red moon. Al-Nairam watches him, a faint smile on his face. You've got that look in your eye again, the same fire from the day we met. He tells Will that the training field was chosen for a specific reason. There was something specific he wanted to tell the boy. Will isn't quite sure what to make of that mysterious hint. Stepping outside, he finds Erica and Veronica waiting. But as they're talking, two more figures approach through the mist. It's Sirius and Professor Bode. Will mentions that Bode's brutal teaching style actually comes from a place of deep concern. Bode looms over him with a terrifying glare. I have no idea what you are talking about. You and I both know the type he claims weaklings shouldn't be arrogant. But Will? He knows the man hasn't changed at all. If you've got it, Bode growls. Then prove it on the battlefield. Thanks for helping Sirius, Will says. Sirius just nods, grateful but still as quiet and reserved as ever. Sirius gives a small, rare smile. Thank you. I was finally able to focus everything I had on getting stronger. That's just Bode's style. As long as you survive to get your revenge, it's not a defeat, it's a lesson. That's a solid way to live, Will replies. Keep leveling up. Sirius grins, bumps Will's fist, and heads toward the waiting carriage. More elite mages on their side is always a win. Will's determined to make sure these upcoming monster battles go exactly how he wants. Veronica says it's time to go. Will is already moving. Once they are inside the carriage, Veronica breaks down the mission the Dun Forest lies ahead. The task is simple. Wipe out the goblins lurking within that dense forest. Each team consists of 3 students from different schools, Schwartz, Hillock, and Silburn, with one veteran teacher acting as support. Erica asks if the rosters are set yet. Veronica confirms they are actually going to be in the same group. Trust me, you and I are about to see if these two can survive the monsters and each other. Alright, you and I are diving into the moment. Will's unique team finally arrives on the scene. It was time to meet the Silburn participants who were waiting. Will remembers them from his past, but they are technically strangers now. Suddenly, a girl shouts his name and tackles him into a hug before he can even blink. She has been dying to meet him, but Will is just standing there, beet red and completely confused by this stranger. The girl steps back, totally unfazed. It makes sense, she says, since they haven't actually been introduced yet. She stands tall with a grin. Her name is Marie Goldrin, granddaughter of the powerful Schwartz Academy director. Will's jaw hits the floor as it clicks. This is the girl he saved and took care of. He never expected this reunion. He asks how she has been, and Marie beams, saying she is doing great. She apologizes for the late thanks, but Will insists there is no need for that. Her grandfather already repaid him with the recommendation, but Marie is determined to show her own gratitude too. With zero magic talent, she joined Silburn and focused entirely on her fencing. She actually topped the academy exams. Turns out she is a natural with the sword. From bedridden to the top of the class in no time? Her talent is just absurd, and she suddenly grabs Will's hands firmly. She tells Master Will he can count on her. They are teammates now. Will flashes a smile, promising they will give it their best together, finally understanding why the director put his faith in him like this. Marie turns suddenly, noticing that the team from Hylich has arrived, and says they should go over to greet them. Erica mentions their squad seems really well put together, and Veronica agrees that the group vibe is already looking great. Marie looks for the rest, asking if Master Ren and Turf arrived. Now watch closely, the door opens, and a legend from Will's past appears, telling everyone to be patient as he steps out. Stopping outside, he introduces himself as Master Ren, and asks to confirm if these are the students joining his specific group. Will's chest tightens as he recognizes his mentor. In his past life, this man was his master and the greatest healer he had ever seen. Internally, he is hyped to be working with his mentor again. Turf appears behind Ren, complaining that the professor hasn't shown up yet. Marie greets Master Turf, but he is just staring at her holding Will's hand. And you are? Turf asks with clear disdain, muttering about Will being just some basic offensive mage from Schwartz Academy. Ren stretches without a care in the world, declaring that this is their group and they can do whatever they want. You saw that, right? Marie hates the attitude, but Will knows this is exactly how his mentor has always been. He asks to call Ren mentor. Ren looks curious, wondering why he would ask. Will explains he knows healing but lacks a teacher. He wants to learn. Ren is stunned. An offensive mage who can actually heal? That is rare. Ren shrugs, saying he can call him whatever. This formation was definitely planned. Marie immediately decides she will call him mentor too, since that is what Master Will is doing. Turf tries to object, but it is useless. Erica and Veronica exchange a look, noticing just how fast this group is bonding already. The team gets their assigned area with a cabin as their home base, while the goblin territory lies deeper within the dense forest. Just like in standard combat, healers aren't meant for the front lines and are supposed to stay safely back at the base. Marie points out that Ren is a healer heading to the front, but he just claims it is different since he is the supervisor. He tells them to do as they please and promises not to be a burden, so Marie offers to protect him out there. Will agrees. Then, the goblins attack. Marie swings her massive sword with crushing force, sweeping through enemies with absolutely devastating impact in every single strike. Goblins are piled up everywhere around her, making Will remember the fragile, bedridden girl he helped so long ago. How did she get this strong? Mary's fencing is pure, raw power, and it looks like she could clear this entire place alone. She warns of a large group. Ren watches, arms crossed. He notes her openings. She pushes well but is vulnerable when surrounded. Will prepares to face some real monsters as he spots a goblin charging directly toward Marie. Will agrees when Ren tells him to relax those tense shoulders. Trust me, you and I won't want to miss this next battle. Alright, you and I are about to dive into a wild story. Ren sees everything, activating his magic and buffs before moving in with precision. He weaves through monsters like it's nothing, his blade flashing as he covers Marie's back with effortless precision. Leave this to me, he promises. Marie doesn't skip a beat before trusting him completely. So, that's fighting with healing magic, Ren notes. Farther back, Will is silently celebrating how well this works. It's effective against monsters, too. The blade from Professor Veronica carries a sharp, heavy force unlike anything from Alpus. So clean, so sharp. You're balancing explosive power and masterclass fencing perfectly, Marie observes. It's seriously impressive. But Ren just calls it a day, already walking toward the next path. Let's keep moving. Marie feels strangely lighter now, and Will knows it's all thanks to their mentor's skill. Ren's healing includes indicators for the worst injuries, but his real gift is speed. It's so subtle that nobody even realizes he's already finished the job. That's exactly why normal fighters never grasp how legendary he is. Will actually asked him about it once. I'm not doing this for show, Ren had told him. As long as you're healed, nothing else matters. Let that sink in for a second. Ren is the best healer on the planet, and only Will knows the truth. Back at the cabin, Ren reviews their progress. Good job, everyone. Turf jokes that since no one got hurt, he didn't actually do anything all day. Providing healing through a meal is also a healer's duty, Ren replied. And he nailed it. That special sauce is fire. Marie adds that the professor is just on another level. He's clearly more than a healer. He knows the front lines too well. Ren explains that treating battlefield wounds naturally teaches you how the front works. That's why he skips regular classes, Turf notes. He's always out where the danger is. Isn't that risky? Marie asks. Ren just smiles, confident that he's fast enough to outrun anything. Will eats in silence, knowing Ren would never actually run away until every single person was safe first. In the original timeline, losing his mentor was a crushing blow for humanity. He wasn't just a healer, he was the only one who truly understood combat. Fate could change now, but time is running out fast. Will finishes his soup, looking down and realizing he still has a bit of time left. In this life, he won't let his mentor die. While the group enjoys the night, goblins gather around a mysterious figure in the dark woods. Now, pay attention, this red moon power is about to turn everything into a nightmare. A massive goblin starts stalking the group. By morning, they're back to the grind, hunting monsters again. Their teamwork is getting sharp as they discuss the last fight. At this rate, they'll be done by tomorrow. They push forward until Ren stops dead. We're turning back. Marie is confused. But we haven't seen any monsters. That's the problem, the professor says. It's too quiet. Goblins are territorial. They should have attacked us by now. We've walked a long way and found absolutely nothing. Something is very wrong with this whole picture. Will asks what's happening. I don't know, but always trust your gut on the battlefield, Ren replies. They decide to retreat and call for backup. Marie suggests Professor Veronica's nearby group, and Ren agrees it's a solid plan. Let's head to their base, Ren commands. Will lags behind, sensing something sinister. This weird goblin behavior smells like a disaster. Marie shouts that they're almost at the road to the other base. Will tries to push back his memories of the past, but the sight in front of him shatters his focus. Erica was there, hands bound with rope, looking completely unconscious. Marie rushes in to save her, but the ground suddenly vanishes. It's a trap, and she's falling right in. She reacts instantly, stabbing her sword into the dirt to stop her fall, hanging on for dear life. She yells a warning. It's an ambush using Erica as bait. Here they come, Ren shouts as arrows fly. Will is a blur, knocking every arrow out of the sky with his knife before they hit. The goblins swarm out with glowing red eyes. Marie climbs out while Will tries to process the chaos. They're surrounded by dozens. This isn't a random attack, it's way too organized. This feels like the Red Moon's influence, but it's 2 years too early. Will's stomach drops. Is the tragedy happening already? Erica moans, showing signs of life. That's enough to ground Will. Now isn't the time for panic. It's time for a fight. There are way too many, Marie says. At least she's still alive. And trust me, you and I need to see this. Will's wooden guardians burst out to shield everyone. Stick with me, because you and I are diving right back into this battle. Will tells Marie to fall back to the archer line. It would let her set up properly. Marie plants her feet and unleashes hell, shattering the enemy formation with one heavy strike. How was that? She asks, looking proud, just as a goblin sneaks up behind her. Will intercepts the monster, tagging its neck before it reaches her. I will cover the gaps. Great work, Ren says. I will go rescue the girl, so you guys keep moving. But suddenly, something feels off. A heavy weight settles in his chest before his brain even registers the danger. He knows the red moon makes monsters violent, but this is different. Now watch this, because something massive is rising from the dirt. An ogre. It was burrowed underground. And that red moon is forcing different species to hunt together. Will realizes he is way too far away to jump in. It feels just like his past life. No matter how hard he tries, he just cannot protect everyone at once. The ogre's fist comes crashing down on Ren. Ren focuses his magic, using physical enhancement to narrowly dodge the blow at the last possible second. Will stands frozen for a moment. His mentor actually mastered the offensive healing magic he taught him. The ogre swings again, but Ren ducks, leaps with everything he has got, and lands right behind the monster's massive head. "Good night," he whispers, hitting the ogre with a powerful mental shock. The beast passes out and slams into the dirt with a heavy thud, while Ren lands perfectly behind it. Will walks over to compliment that incredible move. Ren jokes that a good mentor should learn from his student too. Will says that is exactly what he expected, and Marie admits it was totally incredible. Ren starts untying Erica, warning them that they need to move while they still have the chance. Will thinks that with his mentor's strength, they could probably just wipe out everyone here. The wooden golems are still holding the line, but Ren calls him an idiot. He only put the ogre to sleep since he is a healer, and despite it being a monster, he has no intention of killing it. Once the effect fades, the ogre will be fine. Will smiles, knowing that is just Ren. They clear the remaining goblins and run. After dropping a few pursuers, the monsters finally give up the chase. Will says they can finally catch their breath here. Ren uses his healing magic and tells Erica to wake up. She slowly comes to, totally disoriented and asking where she is. Marie tells her she is safe. Will apologizes for grilling her right after she woke up, but he needs to know why she was out here alone. Erica holds her head, desperately trying to gather her thoughts. She remembered that yesterday's hunt went well, even though they failed to clear out all the monsters in the area. During regrouping, everything went wrong. Professor Veronica just vanished. Will asks for confirmation, and Erica says it is true. Veronica had left a note telling them to wait and that she would be back soon. But Erica got anxious, and after arguing with the other two, she ended up chasing after the woman alone. You and I both know she could not say no when the others pressured her. There is nothing funny about this whole situation. One wrong move and she would have died. None of them were ready for that kind of power gap. Erica said as soon as she entered the forest, she smelled something sweet before waking up here. Ren realizes the goblins must have used some kind of sleeping drug. The trap and the fact they are working with an ogre is bizarre, but there is no time to think about it now. Their base is close, and they need to find the other two. On the way back, Erica suddenly tells them to stop. She stands there frozen, staring ahead in total shock. Their base has been completely destroyed. Marie says she feared this might happen. Goblins are usually territorial and stay put, so this far out should have been safe. But now, she wants to find the reason behind this. Will notes that aggressive attacks on humans are common during red moons, but this is still totally unexplainable. Ren sees no struggle, which means the others must have fled into the woods. He is going to track them down. Will, Erica, and Marie need to regroup with Turf and get out of the forest fast. They agree immediately, but Ren warns them that the base might still be dangerous. The group sprints back. Will asks if Turf is okay, and the boy just complains that dinner is not ready yet. Marie thanks him for being safe, making Turf turn bright red. Will says they will talk later, but they have to leave now. Then he turns around and spots it. He slowly clenches his fist. That ogre is standing right in front of the house. It followed them. Erica panics, asking what they are supposed to do. Will mutters how pathetic he has been until now, leaving Erica confused. But you and I know he is finally ready to fight. Alright, you and I are about to watch Will take on this massive ogre. He knows teamwork is the only way to survive a horde this size. He tells Marie not to overdo it, just land the critical hits and let the wooden golems tank the front lines. Next, he tasks Erica with pinning down the goblins with her fire. She still feels bitter about getting captured so easily. Will says her flames were essential. Erica is totally shocked by the praise, swallowing hard before she unloads a massive burst of fire at them. A massive firewall erupts, and the monsters back off in terror. Erica finally breathes a sigh of relief. But pay attention here, because Will noticed something wrong. The ogre is walking straight through the flames. That beast is on a whole different level. Will sends a golem forward and yells for Erica to light it up. She immediately obeys the command. The golem pins the ogre, turning into a living bonfire as the monster screams in pure agony. Will calls for Marie. She doesn't need words, she just steps up and hurls the ogre away with insane strength. The beast slams down with a crash. Marie smiles, praising their perfect teamwork. But the celebration is cut short as the ogre stands back up, its stomach wound healing in seconds. Marie wonders if they should just keep attacking until it finally stops healing. Will shakes his head. That is no guarantee. They need a more permanent way to end this fight. Suddenly, Erica shouts a warning as Will draws his knife to block a high-speed impact. The ogre is literally throwing goblins like cannonballs. Will bats them aside, annoyed by the weird choice of projectiles. Erica yells, "More are coming." Marie swats a goblin away with her blade, firmly telling the beast that she is returning its property. She trusts Will has a plan, so they focus on the small fries while he charges the boss. The team splits up Erica, and the golems hold the horde while Marie intercepts the incoming goblin projectiles. Will charges the ogre, dodging a lethal claw swipe as the monster tries to crush him. He counters with lightning-fast dagger slashes, but the ogre just roars as the cuts vanish instantly. Suddenly, Will appears behind the beast. He mutters that its wide-open defense was the goal all along. He slams his hand against its neck and triggers life overload, making the monster's heart convulse violently. You and I are watching this monster scream in pure terror before it literally explodes from the inside out. Will walks away from the bloody mess with a calm, satisfied smile on his face. The regeneration was strong, sure, but life overload obliterated its internal structure. There was nothing left to heal. Only the small fries are left now. Will separates one and ends it instantly. The final head drops and it is finally over. Marie celebrates this total victory by hugging them both. Our main character praises their coordination, though Erica is still pretty dazed by how they actually won. But Will stops the party. The others are still in trouble. Just then, a massive gale rips through the forest. It is serious. If they follow that tornado, they can finally regroup with the rest of the teams. Sirius stands frozen after using his power, but Will confirms that he is doing fine. Everyone is safe, but Bode is confused by their weird team and wants to know where the teacher is. He wants to know where the instructor and the rest of the squad went. Ren appears. Will runs to his master, saying he found the two of them. Ren admits that Sirius's tornado made it incredibly easy to track their exact location. He is proud of Will for staying safe, but Bode points out that someone is still missing. Will confirms it, Professor Veronica. Bode isn't worried about her survival, but they can't just leave without giving her an update. Ren decides to watch the students while the other professors split up. One professor confirms he can handle the group. Sirius and Will head out to find Veronica, but Will's auditory perception isn't sharp enough yet to track her down precisely. He will do it the old-fashioned way. He finds her quickly. She seems fine, but something feels deeply wrong, and that's where we leave it. Veronica is clutching a red crystal, and trust me, that familiar light in her eyes is bad news. All right, you and I are jumping in as Professor Veronica hides a mysterious crystal from Will. Will plays it cool, claiming he was just looking for her because the monsters stopped attacking, and training was finally over. Veronica agrees it is time to head back, but Will stops her, demanding to know what that glowing stone really is. The professor brushes him off, but he pushes back, asking why she would abandon her students just to mess with some rock. He demands a real answer. Finally, Veronica prepares to speak her truth. She apologizes, stating she doesn't usually share her secret methods, and warns him that he'd better keep his mouth shut. Will sighs as her heavy aura fills the air, but the professor tells him to relax. She is not the villain here. He tries to push further, but he doesn't have the power to challenge her, and he is not ready to suspect Professor Veronica yet. She was his trusted companion in his past life, and with that, the training camp officially ends. That night, Will is restless, plagued by thoughts that Veronica might actually be working with the Red Moon. In his previous life, she never acted like this, so he decides to keep a close eye on her. When he spots her talking to another professor, he masks his presence and creeps closer to listen in. The colleague asks where exactly she is heading off campus, but Veronica just walks away, claiming it is a private matter. Pay attention here. Will suspects she is tied to that redstone, and honestly, he has no choice but to follow. He starts tailing her through the city streets, realizing halfway through that he didn't exactly have a solid plan. If he is wrong, he is just a creepy stalker, but he can't let this nagging suspicion go. He needs to stop the coming tragedy, and if there is any way to prove her innocence, he absolutely has to find it. This is the first time Will has set foot in this city since his past life. After graduating from the Helig Academy, the spread of monsters had become a serious problem, and he was sent straight to the battlefield with no time for anything else. At least, that is all he can recall. Veronica stops at a stall to buy a bread roll, and watching her, Will is hit by a wave of painful memories from the past. He buys one for himself and takes a bite, surprised by how incredible it actually tastes. Flashback, Veronica smiles, praising the food, while Will pretends he is just a tourist who has never tried street food before. He asks if her merchant family background is why she is such a fan of these local spots. She confirms it but admits it's deeper than that. She has made a strict rule for how she lives her life. She always visits bakeries, a habit from childhood travels that stuck with her even through the horrors of the battlefield. She has met countless people, knowing she will likely never see most of them ever again. And even if they do cross paths, time usually turns them into someone she doesn't even recognize. She refuses to live with regrets or leave things for later. To Will, that finally makes sense. Back in the present, Will clutches his chest, haunted by the fact that in his past life, he actually let Veronica die. He won't let her die again, so let's see if he can finally uncover the truth for himself. She slips into a dark alley. Will follows, amping up his concealment as he realizes he is getting way too close. At the end of the narrow path, Veronica stops to meet a mysterious figure. The stranger apologizes for the sketchy location but insists that this meeting is a matter of extreme importance. He lowers his hood and asks for the item they agreed on, so Veronica reaches into her pocket and hands over the stone. The man clutches it with shaking hands, his eyes lighting up with a dangerous, unhinged excitement. He calls her talent extraordinary, claiming she is exactly the remarkable genius he always believed she was. Finally, the church's dream is within reach. They are going to pull the red moon even closer to their world. Will realizes the horrifying truth. The church, the stone, and the red moon are all part of one massive conspiracy. But his focus slips. His magical concealment begins to fall apart. Veronica reacts instantly, drawing her blade for a lethal strike, leaving Will barely enough time to scream out her name. She stares him down, her stance cold and guarded, realizing he has been tailing her this entire time. The man behind her sounds disappointed, noting that he'd explicitly told her to come to the meeting alone. He laments the broken deal, since he really wanted her in their order, but Veronica coldly tells him to just consider it an accident. The man agrees, leaving Veronica to finish Will off. Trust me, you and I aren't ready for what happens next. All right, stick with me, Will just got a cold rejection. She explains she's only there to investigate and would never dream of sacrificing a student. Will apologizes for the pressure, but insists he needs to know exactly what's going on. She sighs, finally admitting this mess is on her. She should have explained everything from the start. Back in the forest, she sensed a presence. She found a monster lost in a blood frenzy, and right next to it, a mysterious red stone. She describes the chilling, otherworldly energy she felt just by holding it. When she pushed her magic into the gem, it flared with blinding crimson light. That's when a stranger appeared. He claimed finding someone with her massive potential in a place like this had to be destiny. He wanted to prove his mission was a success, but Veronica just wanted to know who the hell he was. He couldn't talk freely because of the rules. To learn the stone's secret, she had to accept 2 conditions: keep it glowing and stay silent. That glow would prove her worth, provided she told no one where she was going or what she saw. He apologized for the trial, sounding almost sincere about testing her like this. But he truly wanted her to join them. That's why Veronica came here to dig for the truth herself. She figured knowing the danger was better than letting a catastrophe strike while everyone was still in the dark. Will notes, the story still has holes. Veronica agrees, but Will is just relieved she's not a traitor. She's clearly not the enemy. The stranger sighs, disappointed that her interest in joining his order was nothing but a lie. He tosses the stone aside, muttering that it's rare for him to throw away someone with so much talent. Will recognizes that gem midair. It's the one from the waterfront, and before anyone can blink, it starts to shine. Now watch this. The monsters go into a total frenzy as 8 massive dragons burst from the water. The man watches in awe. Even within his own order, this much power is rare. These water dragons are top-tier threats. Veronica counts 8 of them, and Will claims he can take on half. She shuts him down instantly. Helping him? Not necessary. Not for a mage like her. Veronica blurs forward with her sword magic, decapitating all 8 dragons in a single flash. Will's impressed, but she stays on guard. Her eyes never leave them. The severed heads hit the dirt, and then they start twitching. Will can't believe his eyes, but Veronica confirms the nightmare. These dragons are alive even without heads. What kind of insane regeneration is this? No healing magic, no head, yet they're still moving. Something is seriously wrong here. Suddenly, one of the dragons lunges directly at Will. He sidesteps and draws his blade, landing a heavy strike. He already knows how thick that hide is. Will grabs the beast, needing to test a theory. He'll handle this one alone. Veronica agrees, but warns him not to overdo it. Will says it'll be quick. He breaks his physical limits, exploding forward with unbelievable speed and power. He grips the dragon's head and pulls with everything he's got. But what comes out isn't a head. Wait, you saw that too? It's not a dragon, it's a kraken. It's not regenerating. It never had a head. This is an octodon, a soft-bodied monster using a fake form. The monster speaks. It's actually impressed that Will uncovered its true, slimy identity so quickly. Since his order doesn't care about combat skill, he can't finish Will here. But he's going rogue now. He introduces himself as Alroot and vows to tear them both down with his own bare hands. Will looks at Veronica. He needs to know if she can handle this freak. Her sword magic is perfect for this, but she refuses to let a student walk into a death trap. Will grabs her hand, eyes glowing with physical enhancement. He'll be back once Alroot is dealt with. She just needs to hold on. Veronica smiles, calling him the most reckless student she's ever seen. Fine, she says. But she warns him that man definitely has a hidden ace up his sleeve. Will is shocked, but she knows he can do the impossible. He charges straight into the fray. Alroot admits Will is fast, then claims he's just as quick. Will lunges, but the mage blocks with his staff. Will didn't see that coming. Alroot laughs, saying the kid seems talented at literally everything. They both reset for the real duel. Alroot touches a fresh cut on his face. It burns, but he can fix it. So what do you and I take from this? This battle is only just beginning. Alright, you and I are about to see a healer who actually knows how to scrap. Let's see how he does it. Alroot admits he did not, but just by watching Will, he learned everything as if Will were his own personal master. Will realizes this combat style for healers actually existed once before. He wonders how far they have come. Alroot calls Will a natural talent and admits he is incredibly jealous. He really wants to meet the person who actually taught Will. Alroot asks if Will wants to join the order. Will just laughs. He thinks the guy is joking. He would never join that trash, not even in his next life. Suddenly, the healing magic in his hands turns blood red. Alroot calls it a shame. He lunges at Will, determined to end him right then and there. Will blocks with his dagger. Alroot's physical boost is no joke. The stone and healing magic make for one hell of a combo. There is still so much he does not understand about their power, but he is going to beat the answers out of this guy. Maybe then he can stop the coming tragedy. He parries the staff, spins with the momentum, and sends the mage flying with a massive kick. Alroot recovers, admitting he might actually lose this one. But pay attention, he has the order behind him, and he just activated body corruption. One eye turns a demonic red. His arm warps and twists into a nightmare. Alroot calls the transformation absolutely beautiful. Will realizes this is way beyond any normal healing magic buff. He demands to know who taught him this. Alroot says it all came from the Order's dark secrets. Before this, his life was boring. Just a healer for hire, taking orders from arrogant jerks every single day. But as a healer, he saw things others missed. He saw a world full of people not worth saving. The Order gave him power, and finally, his life meant something. Will tells him he is dead wrong. Whatever he thinks he found, it is pure evil. If this continues, countless lives will be lost. Alroot just strikes his monstrous muscles and says it is all part of the plan. The Order says it must be this way. Then, he slams Will across the alley with insane force. Will hits the wall and spits up blood. Alroot mocks him, claiming that justice always wins in the end. Will thinks of his brother, his teacher, and everyone lost because of monsters like this. Alroot stops in shock. He cannot believe Will is still standing after taking that much damage. Wait, you and I need to see this. Will starts healing his own arm, and the wounds vanish instantly. Alroot is speechless. Total recovery in seconds? This kind of healing is impossible. Will swears he will never forgive him. He is going to make Alroot suffer a fate worse than death. Alroot charges again, desperate to kill Will before he can heal another scratch. Will strikes at the same time, smashing that monstrous arm with raw power. Alroot is sent reeling back. Will tells him not to start screaming yet. He is nowhere near finished with him. Alroot cannot even track the movement. Before he can think, a brutal uppercut catches him right on the chin. He flies upward, gets stuck in the ceiling, and then crashes down, totally blacked out. Will looks at the body. He will deal with Alroot later. He turns back to Veronica, who is still battling the Kraken. She focuses her energy and delivers a massive slash with her sword flash magic. The beast is sliced in two like pieces of sushi. Veronica notices that Will has finished his fight as well. The monster's regeneration was tough, so it took her a bit longer than expected. Will agrees, the Kraken was a handful. He immediately grabs Alroot and slams his face into the stone wall. He puts a knife to the mage's throat and demands answers. Alroot tells him not to look so scary. Will says that is up to him. He has plenty of questions that need answering. He wants to know what this cult is and what they want. Alroot says a true believer never talks. Suddenly, he presses his own blade against his neck, declaring his life belongs to the cult. He shouts for their long life and takes his own life. Will freezes. Alroot dies with a smile, glad to have protected the secrets of his masters. He thinks he is a perfect believer. He believes his soul is heading to the world of desires under Lord Claudius. But then things get weird. Will heals him instantly. Trust me, you and I didn't see that twist coming. You and I are about to see how a cold blade to the throat can't stop Will. Alroot was sure he'd ended it. He underestimated Will's faith. The boy brought him back from death, leaving Alroot stuttering that it was completely impossible. Will just shrugs it off. He can heal anything, even if Alroot insists no normal healer could ever do that. Will says he isn't normal. He's destined to be the greatest healer, and his words carry a heavy threat. If he can heal death, he can also torture someone and reset their pain as many times as needed. The realization hits Alroot like a truck. He's terrified. Will asks if he's finally ready to start talking. Now watch closely, because something sinister is about to take over. A dark voice orders the man to die. Panic floods Alroot's face. He collapses, sobbing as his own body completely betrays him under the command. Will jumps back while Veronica screams for him to get away. Something is very wrong, and the man is fading. Alroot's body dissolves into smoke as they shield their eyes from the rotting remains left on the ground. Will rushes forward, desperately trying to use his magic, but the man is already too far gone to save. A powerful curse wiped his life force away in an instant. Even Will couldn't reverse it. You and I wonder who's behind this, Will mutters while Veronica checks on him. He says he's fine, but he's frustrated he lost their only lead. That information was gold. Veronica reminds him the student is safe. On the way back, Will notes the redstone was destroyed out of nowhere. She warns him that the cult and those red stones are far too dangerous to mess with. Just knowing they exist is enough to keep anyone up at night. Will agrees they have to stay sharp. He's stronger than in his past life, but is it enough? Veronica admits she's glad he tagged along. She pushed the director for this mission, and Will is the reason she finally noticed something major. Will gets it, but he has to ask why does she use mana to attack instead of just healing. She explains her merchant family background. She spent her childhood surrounded by all kinds of mages and healers. Maybe that's the reason. Will isn't convinced. If it were that simple, mana research would be decades ahead of where it is now. She admits it's a vague feeling, like someone told her a secret when she was just a little girl. Will suspects a link to the cult, but she quickly changes the subject by offering him some fresh bread. He's speechless but agrees. He's finally found a real clue to steer away from the future's destruction. He still gets punished for leaving the academy without any permission. Elsewhere, in a noble mansion, a man dies with vampire bite marks on his neck. A voice asks if he's dead and says it's now coming for her. She sighs, agreeing to follow the order. Trust me, you and I need to see what happens next.